So last night, I'm looking out of my hotel room at the Staples Center. I don't know which way you guys are facing, but I'm looking down on the Staples Center, and it's lit up. I don't know if you guys experienced some of the similar issues that everyone else in the hotel had. Walked a lot of stairs last night. But in addition to wishing that we had all the electricity that the Staples Center was using, at least for the elevators, I was reminded of being in a very, very similar hotel room in this same hotel 4 years ago, looking down at the Staples Center from my room when I attended a conference called Blog World. It's called New Media Expo now, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's effectively people who are creating stuff online, bloggers, photographers, filmmakers, people who are taking something they care about and putting it out there and building communities around these ideas and changing the world, changing people. And I'd come to this conference wanting to find my thing, you know? I don't know if you guys have ever kind of wondered, why am I here? There's got to be more than just what I do every day. There's got to be something, some reason. And I wanted to find my thing. And it was exciting. It was a great conference. I had a wonderful time, but I didn't find it. I came home from that conference, and I had learned some good stuff. I think at conferences, this is kind of an inspirational moment, but other tracks are practical. You learn some tactics for how to do what you do better. And so I definitely learned some technical things, but I didn't know what my thing was. What am I here to do? I felt like I had something to say, I just didn't know what it was. So I went home, and I wouldn't say I was depressed, I was just disappointed. But I kind of filed that away. I don't remember there being this moment where I just said, well, I'm not going to think about that anymore, but I kind of went back to work. I went back to the work that I had. I own a printing company in Fairbanks, Alaska, and when you own a company, there's plenty to do. There's no shortage of activities to take on. So I kind of put my head down and got to work and stopped looking, I guess. My wife, she was going through a class on gratitude at our church, and it was a women's class. And for those of you doing the math at home, I wasn't invited. So I kind of got the Cliff Notes version. When she would come home every week, she would tell me kind of what they had talked about. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, where there's an idea that gets a hold of you and just kind of won't let you go. Gratitude was that for me. As she was going through this class, I definitely seemed to be much more affected by it than her. Not that she's ungrateful, and probably because she's more grateful than I am, because I recognized that I was sorely lacking in this department. Not about just being thankful, because I felt like I was a pretty thankful person, and not about saying thank you when someone opens the door for you or something like that. Those are more obvious. But about really taking the time to express the gratitude that I had. It's one thing to be thankful for something, it's another to express that to somebody else. Have any of you ever had the horrible situation where somebody comes up to you or emails you or calls you and tells you that they appreciate something you've done? It's horrible, I know. But has that ever happened to you guys? You ever have that moment? It doesn't feel bad, does it? It feels pretty good, and I started to recognize that if I felt it and didn't say it, that I was effectively stealing that feeling from somebody else, and that's lame. That's not something I wanted to carry around. So I decided that I was going to start sending a thank you card every day. Again, I own a printing company, so I have access to a few pieces of equipment that can help me do that. And I'm a fairly creative guy. I like to dabble in the graphic arts. And so I decided I was going to make my own cards, and I would do some quirky designs and things that when somebody got it, they'd be like, of course, this is Geoff. Nothing wrong with buying them off the shelf at Hallmark or at your local stationer, but I wanted to do something a little different. So I started designing cards, and I started sending a card every day, and that is also another important point. If you ever have something that you're not doing at all, set a completely unrealistic goal, like going from 0 to 260. That's always ensures success. That's a good place to start. But I found that I entered this thinking it was going to be like like dieting or starting a exercise routine. You know, when you change your default habits, you have to be very diligent. You have to be very disciplined, or you go back to your default habits, right? And so I figured I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start writing these cards, and it's really, I need to be very purposeful, because as soon as there's some shiny thing off in the distance, I'm going to not want to do this anymore, and I'm going to go back to my default, which was not expressing gratitude. And something very different started to happen, though. And I began to notice that it wasn't a discipline after just a couple weeks. It wasn't something that I had to plan for. It was something that I enjoyed doing. And then I have to wrestle with my motivations, because, well, am I doing this because I really want to express gratitude, or because it feels good to me? Is it selfish? But I set that aside and just kept on doing what I was doing. And what I began to see was that the process of expressing gratitude was changing me, kind of from the inside out. And the default behaviors that used to exist were no longer my default behaviors. And I had new default behaviors. And that was kind of a cool thing. And I began to wonder if I wasn't thinking too small about me sending cards. So I can send out a couple hundred cards, 300 cards a year, something like that. And that matters. That's not insignificant. But here we have thousands and thousands of dollars of printing equipment. We have all the facilities to make more of these cards. How could we expand this? And myself and my business partner, we have 3 employees. There's 5 of us. We're a small shop. So we don't have a ton of resources. And like Perrin said, sometimes that can be daunting. But we also don't have a ton of red tape. So I went to my business partner and I said, what if we gave these away? What if we just started, like, we put up a little thing in the shop and we started sharing them? And within about 30 minutes, we had sketched out a project that we call Thanks Fairbanks. And what I didn't realize here was that thing I was looking for at Blog World was kind of starting to show up. And even in the moment, I wasn't really seeing it. This was just the next logical thing to do. And so we sketched it out, and because we're simple people, it's a simple project. We share, for anyone who wants to sign up in our store or go to thanksfairbanks.com and sign up, and you guys are all welcome to do that. It's usually just for Fairbanks people, but you're special. But we will send 3 free thank you cards every 3 months. So every 3 months, and this is so fun. My wonderful parents come in and they stuff a bunch of envelopes. At this point, we have about 900 subscribers. And so my parents are coming in, stuffing nearly 3,000 thank you cards into 900 envelopes because they want to be a part of it. And so it was definitely fun. I think starting things is a fun thing. You know, when you're building something new, there's always something exciting about that. But without feedback, without an understanding you're really doing something meaningful, it can be hard to sustain. And so it feels like a very arm's-length process. We're handling very technical things. We are printing and cutting and folding and doing all these steps. But early on, we're not seeing a lot of feedback from people that it's really making a difference. And then I got the call, capital T, capital C. And the call changed the way I looked at it. I began to recognize that we really were having an impact, because this woman who I didn't know from anybody, that's always exciting too, when a project you're working on touches somebody that doesn't have to like you or have to like it because they like you. She calls me up and says, hey, I just want to let you know, my 15-year-old son, he'd been in your store with me the other day, and he signed up for your cards because he liked the way they looked, which that's always, I'm almost 40 years old, so that I could make something that a 15-year-old likes, that feels pretty good. I'm not completely irrelevant, yes. And she says he comes down from his room the other night and he's looking for his cards because he says he wants to send a thank you card to Nana. And she's like, you don't know what that does to a mom. And I'm thinking, I was 15 years old and those words would have never come out of my mouth. So I feel like I do know what that would mean to my mom. And it's like, okay, this changed my behaviors, and now we're having an opportunity to maybe change other people's behaviors and to really do what we call spreading a culture of gratitude in our community. And that is enough, but what we didn't expect to happen, we hoped that would happen, clearly. We hoped that we would be able to have an impact on people and that we wouldn't just be wasting our time. But what we didn't expect to happen was that we would get a great deal of attention for sending out these thank you cards. People started to take notice. The list starts to grow. We were very fortunate to only have a couple hundred people on the list to start. My big fear when we launched it was either no one will sign up or everyone will sign up. Those are the only two possibilities, right? There's nothing in between. We're either going to be complete failures because no one wants to do it or complete failures because we can't deal with the load. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and we were able to kind of fail in small ways as we learned the process. But we began to get quite a bit of attention, and for a company that in 17 years had never been mentioned in the media once, in the span of 12 months, we had 12 opportunities to be on the front page of the paper, on the evening news and blogs, and I started to get asked to speak places. And I start to get to tell this story, and I'm only beginning to recognize that, oh, wait, maybe this is my thing. Maybe this is my moment. And I'm sorry. This project comes full circle here. I'm going to try to hold myself together here. This project comes full circle here because last night I'm looking out my window at the Staples Center. Same thing I did 4 years ago when I was quite lost. When I didn't know what difference I could make, what impact I could have on my community and on the world at large. And I get to come here today, back to the same hotel, and talk to all you fine people because somebody thought that this story was inspiring enough that maybe it would inspire you. So now not only have I gotten to figure out part of what I'm here to do, but it's valuable enough that sharing it can have an impact on other people. And what I really want to leave you guys with today, what I hope that you'll take away from this, is not that you need to go start giving away free thank you cards. That's my thing. No, it's not my thing. In fact, we would love for it to become very distributed and other printers to want to do their own thing. We're going to do Fairbanks, but we're happy to share what we've learned. But what I hope you take away is that we've learned that an honest and genuine story is very powerful. Combining something you're good at with something you care about is like there's this magic that happens at that intersection. And that the story is part of the product or the service. That a good story, well told, is a gift to the customer. I've gotten a number of texts today from people from my hometown, so I hope I'm not overstating it when I say there are a lot of people in Fairbanks who are very proud that this project that they're a part of in Fairbanks, Alaska, is being talked about in Los Angeles. And to have been a part of that is very exciting, and that story gets to be part of what we share with our customers. Because now we have 900 people, and we've given away a little more than 23,000 cards to date. But we have 900 people who are part of this. And so, is it good for business? Yeah, it's good for business. But mostly, it's good for our community. The fact that those two things can exist at the same time, well, that's wonderful. That's really, really great. But I hope that you guys, when you go back to your rooms tonight or when you are on the plane home, that you have an opportunity to think about what is the story that you're going to tell? And how can you make that a part of the product or service you're selling? How is that a gift to your customer? Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.